AITA for not wanting to give my adult stepdaughter her own room in our new home. Throwaway plus fake names. I, 35F, have been with my husband, 43M, James, for 3 years. Married for 18 months. He has a 21-year-old daughter from his previous marriage. Jane and I get along well, but she was already away at college by the time her dad and I got serious. So we don't have a very close relationship. James and First are looking to purchase a home together because our current home is not going to work for me in the long term due to some disabilities. We've found a few we liked and we were discussing our options when I referred to the third bedroom as the guest room. James asked what First meant because that would be Jane's room. This led to an argument between us because I don't think Jane needs a dedicated bedroom in our new home. She's renting her own place now, with roommates, year-round. No more student housing. And she still has her room at her mom's house. Of course she's always welcome to visit, and if she were to ever need to move back in, then we could adjust at that time, but as it stands, she's an adult moving on to the adult portion of her life, and it seems silly to dedicate a room for her when she'll use it for 2 weeks out the year, max. My husband is upset with me still, but I really don't think his position is that strong. She's a grown-up now. AITA? Edit U Uptown 2114 DM'd me to ask if I had ever seen Jane nude. This doesn't add anything to the post, but I fully believe in publicly shaming pervs. NTA. As you say, she's a grown woman with her own grown-up home. Why on earth would she need her own room in your new house? Tell your husband to cut the umbilical cord. NTA. My parents moved after I no longer lived at home. I stay in the guest room when I visit. I have never felt like they don't want me there. INTA. I'm astonished at people calling you an asshole and suggesting your daughter should get to decorate a room in your house, which she doesn't live at. If my father tried to allocate me a room like this, I'd find it deeply weird. Have you got any indication about her feelings on this madness? NTA. But I think a good compromise could be putting a dresser in the guest room for her to store her things. That way, she feels like she still has a place at your home. But you can use the room for guests as well. I wouldn't want to totally kick my daughter out when in college, but I also think it's reasonable to want to use the room for other guests. NTA. But this may be more about Subhan's child being an adult now and how that may be a difficult adjustment for him rather than the room in its own right. NTA. She's moved out, is no longer living at home. She doesn't need a dedicated space. My bedroom became an office, aka junk storage room, and my brother's room became my stepdad's radio room, aka junk storage plus some radio equipment. Sounds like husband may still see her as that 3-year-old little girl in his mind. But that girl grew up and has her own life and home now. NTA. I don't think a fully moved out adult needs their own room in their parents' house. Guest room should do well enough for visiting. You can convert it into her room in the future if she needs to go back home for an emergency housing situation. NTA. Sounds like daddy isn't ready for his baby girl to be grown up. Nah. Your husband emotionally wants his daughter to feel she still has a home. Rationally, based on what you have said, the daughter doesn't need a room. So long as she is okay with people sleeping in her room. Just call it her room and let her decorate it any way she wants, so long as it has at least a queen size bed, which would be the minimum an adult couple would want. Any guests shouldn't care about the decoration of a free room. If she wants her room to be exclusive and not be used for any other guests, then cross that bridge. I am not clear on the difference between a guest room and Jane's room. Is James just saying Jane should have priority rights on it? Can you dedicate a drawer for her? NTA try and compromise with a spare room as a guest room she can use if she stays there. Nah, but I strongly suggest you call the third bedroom Jane's room. At least for now. Moving into a new home is stressful enough. Your husband doesn't want to feel like he's losing his old house and his daughter, which is exactly what he's going to worry about if you start using the Jane can just stay at her mom's house logic. If Jane had her own room in the old house, then for now, let her have her own room in the new house. As time goes on, everyone settles in, and your husband realizes how sporadically Jane visits, then he'll be able to accept the fact that Jane is an adult, and that new house isn't her home, not because she never had a bedroom to begin with, but because Jane grew up into a woman with her own home and her own space. If you let the process happen naturally, it'll still happen, but you won't look like the mean stepmother pushing out his daughter. NTA. My parents downsized to a 2-bedroom when we left the house. It was cheaper and easier on them. We didn't have a dedicated room. Well, except the multiple times my sister moved back in with them. NTA. But you, Uptown 2114 is. Nah. On one hand, there's not much difference between setting up a guest room for her to use and setting up a room for her. On the other hand, it sounds like your husband is having trouble coming to terms with the fact that his daughter is growing up and may not need space in his home. Has this been discussed with Jane? Does she intend to spend time living with you and her dad? It still sounds like she'll have a room to stay in when she visits, and you're willing to adjust if she needs to stay long term. NTA. NTA. When asked if she has a room in the current house, yes. It's pretty much just storage at this point. She usually stays at her mom's when she visits because she has an entire basement suite there. Making her a dedicated room at this time would be a waste of space. If she happens to need to move in, it's not that hard to turn the guest room into a room for her. Shout out to the public shamming! Exclamation mark. Partying face, partying face, partying face, partying face, partying face. Considering the fact that Op has said in a comment that while Jane has her own room at her mother's house, her room at her father's house is just storage and Jane prefers to stay at her mother's BC her room there has an en-suite, leaning towards NTA. But if Jane's room at her father's house is storage, Op and her father need to reach out to figure out what's going on with her stuff. Does she want a room at her father's to stay at, and if not, does she want a storage unit? And if she does, then how does she want to deal with the move from the old house to the new with her stuff? I'm not gonna call Op and until those questions have been asked to and answered by Jane and how Op reacts. NTA. When I moved out, my parents converted my bedroom to the guest room. When I go visit, I sleep in the guest room. It is what it is. I don't know any adult who still has their room at their parents' house.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. AmITheAsshole is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.